Welcome to this video on reducing your waste, brought to you by Garden Organic. Garden Organic is the national charity for organic growing. At the heart of Garden Organic are the members' experiments, which involve ordinary people all over the country trying different growing methods and techniques in their gardens and reporting back their results, so we can write up the results fully to share with everyone. The Heritage Seed Library protects vegetable varieties that are hard to find. We don't lock them away somewhere like a gene bank, but share them with our members to grow and enjoy. We have several other projects like Master Composters, Master Gardeners and Waste Reduction Volunteers, which all involve volunteers giving advice to their local communities. You can find out more at www.gardenorganic.org.uk. So, waste. No matter how hard we try, we all create some waste. Nobody's expecting a switch to a zero-waste lifestyle overnight, but most of us could reduce, reuse and recycle a bit more. And that's what this video is going to help you do. How much do we waste? On average, we each throw away about 400 kilograms a year. That's nearly a whole polar bear. But with nearly 70 million of us in the UK, that's a lot of polar bears. In the UK, England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales disposed of 26.4 million tonnes of household waste in 2018. 11.9 million tonnes of that waste was recycled, reused or composted, which is 45%. Yet we should be closer to 50%. Some countries, and certain areas of the UK too, even get up to 60%. A study called a waste composition analysis is often carried out locally and nationally to see what people are throwing away and where. I could think of better ways of spending a Thursday afternoon, but they do tell us some interesting things. At the moment, they're still telling us we throw away too much food, textiles, and too many items that could have gone into curbside recycling. So what can we do to make the change? To understand this, we need to look at the whole waste picture. The phrase reduce, reuse and recycle is nothing new, but maybe we've forgotten over the years why it was written in that order. Reduce has to come first, and then reuse. Recycling is kind of the last chance saloon before it ends up in the bin. But let's start at the bottom of the list, at landfill. Landfills are how we used to dispose of all our rubbish, just dumping it in a big pile and when there's no more room, moving on to somewhere else. Not ideal. It's also not ideal because landfills give off toxic gases and chemicals, as well as greenhouse gases like methane. This is why many places now recover energy by burning our waste, to produce electricity instead. This is a very clever process which controls emissions and enables valuable metal to be collected at the end of the process. However, it is important to remember that it is still much better for the environment to reduce, reuse and recycle. But hang on, did we miss one out? Is there something even worse than throwing all our rubbish in landfill? Well, yes, there is when we litter. Dropping rubbish on the ground really is the worst of the worst. It breaks down and pollutes the environment, and it's dangerous to wildlife too. Don't do it. Take your rubbish home. Recycle it instead where possible. Join in litter picks in your area too. So as we slowly climb up the waste tree to better methods of disposing, we come to recycling. Quite simply, turning it into something else again. But first, why is recycling so important? Getting rid of waste costs billions of pounds a year, so recycling it instead saves money. It also means less greenhouse gas emissions and air and water pollution coming from landfill sites. Recycling uses less energy than making something from natural materials. And of course it saves those natural resources in the first place, such as timber, water and mineral ores or metals. Yet a common complaint about recycling is that it's too confusing, that there's just too much different information out there. So who do we trust when it comes to recycling information? The packaging labels, the newspapers, TV programs, social media? The truth is, none of these. Social media is full of people's opinions, so might not be correct. TV channels and newspapers talk about recycling for the whole country, which isn't helpful because all areas recycle differently. Packaging labels are also confusing. You might think both of these labels mean you can recycle them at home, but the first one, the green dot as it's called, just means the producer has paid money towards recycling schemes in general. The other means that the product can be recycled, but this does not necessarily mean you can in your local area. So yes, that is confusing, but the solution is really simple. Ignore it, all of it. Get all your recycling information from one place and one place only, your council. It's their system, their trucks, their sorting facilities, their household recycling centres. It's always best to go straight to your local council information, as different districts can have different recycling collections. So for example, Dudley is in the West Midlands county, but search for Dudley Recycling rather than West Midlands Recycling. Try it today. It will usually be the first link you see, but just check it says the name of your council and .gov.uk. Find the info, print it out, write it down, put it on the fridge and stick to it. It's difficult to give general recycling advice here, as I've already explained, every area is different, but here's some top tips. Don't put your recycling in a carrier bag. It means workers in the sorting factories have to rip open the bag later. And if it looks suspicious or particularly contaminated, they may well just throw it away. Just a quick wash is enough to remove food and liquid. No need to put it in the dishwasher. Just save them to the end of the washing up and give them a swill if needed. If you have a mixed recycling collection, then make sure everything's dry before going in so it doesn't make paper and cardboard wet and unrecyclable. So what about things that you can recycle elsewhere? Understandably, this is where it gets a bit more complicated, but I've stuck with advice that should be true wherever you are. Most household recycling centres will take clean, usable clothes, but Red Cross, Oxfam, H&M and M&S will take textiles of any condition and recycle them. All shops that sell batteries have a battery collection point. Even if your council doesn't collect clean aluminium foil and trays, they will usually accept them at household recycling centres. Disposable coffee cups can now be recycled at Costa and Starbucks, although not the polystyrene lids. Carrier bags can be recycled at supermarkets when they can't be reused anymore. Check they're not compostable though. You will now see labelling on some plastic wrap, like bread bags, freezer food bags, inner cereal packets, wrap around multi-pack of bottles and cans, and fruit and veg bags, telling you that they can be recycled with bags at supermarkets. You can recycle your crisp packets at TerraCycle points only, so no putting these in your curbside recycling collection. So where does composting fit into all this? Surely that's something just Monty Don and your grandparents do, isn't it? Composting is actually a waste reduction method in its own right. It's slightly better than recycling as it doesn't need trucks, plastic bins and energy. But what actually is compost? Isn't it just dirt or soil? Compost is actually organic matter, fruit, vegetables, grass, leaves, twigs and even cardboard that is broken down or decomposed in the presence of air. This is why the fancy name for composting is aerobic decomposition. Soil has some of this organic matter, but lots more rock, sand, silt and clay too. There's lots of reasons why we should compost. It helps your garden grow, saves you money on manufactured gardening products, reduces pollution from bonfires and transporting of waste, means less organic matter emitting greenhouse gases in landfills, stops the purchase of environmentally damaging peat compost, and adding compost to soil improves its ability to store carbon too. With compost, it's all about getting the mix right, and we recommend something like a 50-50 mix of greens and browns. Greens are rich in nitrogen and rot down really quickly, things like grass, vegetable peelings and fruit scraps. Browns are rich in carbon and take longer to break down, things like cardboard, leaves and sticks. These provide structure, allowing air to move around your compost and absorbing excess moisture. Add too many greens and your compost will be slimy and smelly. Add too many browns and your compost will be too dry. So what are these greens and browns? Greens would be grass cuttings, vegetable peelings, fruit scraps, soft prunings and plant debris, young annual weeds. coffee grounds and tea bags, as long as they're not made with plastic. Browns would be cardboard, including egg boxes and toilet and kitchen roll tubes, autumn leaves, woody prunings, tissues and paper towels, but make sure there's no meat, fat or oil residue on them. So what shouldn't go in? Well, meat and fish, cooked food, bread, bones, pasta, liquids, for example custard and gravy, and dairy products shouldn't be added as they attract rats. Thick woody material will take too long to break down, although it could be chopped up and shredded though. And cat and dog poo, this will break down and is organic matter, but it can pass on diseases to humans, so avoid this. You can get your compost bins from getcomposting.com. Just type in your postcode and the website will show you the prices for your area, as councils often discount bins to encourage more people to compost. I'll tell you where to get more composting advice at the end of this video too. The next best way to reduce our waste is by reusing the things that we've already made. Using something more than once is so much better than just throwing it away. Using the back of an envelope or junk mail for shopping lists, or using an old shirt as a rag are examples of being thrifty. Today though, reuse has become more about moving away from single-use items and replacing them with products that have been specifically made to be reused. This started with a simple shopping bag, but now includes a whole range of products. Reusable coffee cups, water bottles, straws, cloths, lunch boxes, sandwich wraps, cutlery and even nappies are all modern examples of items that reduce the demand for single-use items. Repairing is another kind of reuse. If we fix something instead of throwing it away, we are extending its life. If we don't know how to fix something, many of us go to YouTube these days, but you could visit a repair cafe instead. Repair cafes are friendly meeting places where skilled volunteers will help fix your broken items. They can repair electrical items, even computers and smartphones, furniture, tools, jewellery, toys, clothes and much more. There are hundreds of repair cafes in the UK, and each one diverts 2 to 3 tonnes of waste from landfill each year, so there may well be one near you. If not, there's help on how to set one up on the Repair Cafe website. So now we've reached the top of the waste model, reduce. Reducing what we use is the best thing we can do. It means we're not wasting natural resources, don't have to try to find ways to reuse it, don't have to waste lots of time and energy recycling later, and saves money too. We live in a society that buys more than we need. We buy to make ourselves feel better and to have the latest fashions and gadgets. As we saw earlier though, the thing we buy too much of and regularly waste is food. Shockingly, much of this binned food is still in its packaging. There was literally no attempt to eat it before it was thrown away. 1.3 billion tonnes of food is wasted globally every year, which is a third of all food produced. 69% of UK food waste comes from households, not supermarkets, not restaurants, us, at home. To put that in perspective, that's 7.1 million tonnes of food thrown away from UK households every year. They wouldn't thank us for it, but this would fill Wembley Stadium 9 times. For example, 24 million slices of bread go to waste every day from UK homes. If we piled this up, it would go up the world's highest mountain, Mount Everest, 23 times. Here's some top tips to fight food waste. Planning. Make a list of what you need on paper or your phone. Use a free app like Yumly to find thousands of recipes and create an automatic shopping list. Check your cupboards and your freezer to use up food you have and avoid duplication when shopping. Cook double the amount of a recipe and eat half now, but keep the rest for later in the week. Even freeze it to keep for longer. Shop sharp. Just buy for a couple of days at a time to reduce waste. Much of that waste is created by just throwing stuff in the trolley that looks nice. So if you can't plan for a whole week, just think, what do we need today and tomorrow? Stick to your list while shopping. Avoid offers and new products unless you'll definitely use them. Buy loose fruit and veg where you can. Most supermarkets have got better at this, but you could also support your local zero waste shop too. Buying wonky veg helps reduce food waste from farmers' fields, and can be cheaper in some supermarkets. Just because it looks like the mandrake from Harry Potter doesn't mean it tastes any different. And you know, vegetables have feelings too. Know your dates. Sell by and display until are only labels for retailers, so ignore these. Best before just means it might taste dry or have less flavour. You can often eat things past its best before date. Bread's a good example of this and probably explains the huge amount of bread being thrown away. If it doesn't have any mould on it or doesn't feel as dry as a scouring pad, it will be fine. Only use by indicates there is a food safety issue if you eat it after this date. You'll see this on eggs, for example. Check dates and eat food with shortest date first. Freeze them if you won't eat them in time. Perfect portions. Weigh or measure your food. Work out the right amount for you. Encourage people to serve themselves from bowls on the table and then put the remainder in the fridge for another day. A mug, tablespoon, spaghetti measure or simple scales are all you need. Use the Love Food Hate Waste portion calculator online if you're not sure or are cooking for more people than normal. Love your leftovers. Check your cupboards and fridge and freezer before meal planning to use up what you have. You can search the Yumly app or BBC Good Food website by your leftover ingredients to find recipes. What I mean by this is that if you type lemon, salmon, spinach, they show you recipes with those ingredients. Freeze leftovers in portion-sized meals. Have a good store of canned, dried and frozen foods to use with leftover food, so things like cans of chickpeas and red kidney beans, dried herbs and frozen peas. Whole food eating is all about including the bits we cut off in the meal. Potato skins, apple peel, cauliflower leaves, cabbage hearts, carrot tops and ends of leeks and onions are just some of the things that should end up on your plate, not in the bin. Check out the Complete Food Guide on the Love Food Hate Waste website for tips and recipes. Savvy storage. Keep your fridge at 0 to 5 degrees and your freezer at -18 degrees or less. Use boxes or bags to keep air and moisture away from your food. Label your frozen food with a name and a date. That might sound a bit over the top, but you'd be amazed how one brown mush looks like another after 2 months in the freezer. Freeze meals in 1 or 2 serving sizes. It will freeze faster and defrost quicker. Bread, milk, cheese and herbs all freeze well. Share. £500 million worth of food is thrown away in the UK every year just when people go on holiday. One clever method to prevent this would be using the Olio app, which allows neighbours to share food that would otherwise be wasted. Just snap a photo and post. A growing network of community fridges is also allowing people to share their surplus food with others in their community. Check out the Hubbub Foundation's community fridge map to find your nearest. It also provides guidance on how to set one up. And of course, we could compost some of our inedible food waste too. So where can you go for further waste reduction support? Well, if you're lucky enough to live in Staffordshire or Worcestershire, you can get help from our waste-savvy staffs or Let's Waste Less volunteers. Go to www.staffordshire.gov.uk/waste-savvy or www.letswasteless.com to find out more. If you're from a council or waste contractor and are interested in having your own waste reduction volunteer programme in your region, email us at enquiry@gardenorganic.org.uk. If you'd like to know more about composting, organic growing, or what Garden Organic is all about, check out the links below, which you'll also find in the video description. And for more on the other ways to reduce waste, the Recycle Now website will answer all your general recycling questions, but has some useful advice on reducing and reusing too. Love Food Hate Waste will go into more detail on the food waste tips we briefly explored here, and the Love Your Clothes site gives guidance on reducing textile waste. Thanks for joining us today and learning more about how we can all reduce our waste. In the video description, you'll find a link to a short quiz suitable for anyone aged about 9 and upwards. Make sure to pass on what you've learned here and share this video so we can start winning the war against waste.